just what's your thoughts on this top three in the East, and who are you most confident in right now? What are your thoughts on this Eastern Conference?
Yeah. So the Sixers are weird because at this point, I actually like them just as much as Boston. Where in the beginning of the season, I picked Milwaukee because I've loved Giannis. That team without Middleton went toe to toe with Boston. This season, Milwaukee, Giannis has missed a decent amount of games. Even Drew's missed a decent amount of games, and Middleton's barely played. Yet they have the best record in the NBA. So for a question of like what team do I like out of the East, I like Milwaukee because they have the best player and they might have the best surrounding players around the best player. They have everything. Their depth, Jay Crowder only just added more of what they're good at, and that's perfect. Bobby Portis off the bench. Brooke Lopez is like Rudy Gobert, but better. They actually have a lot of pieces that work. I think they're the best team. Even with guys missing, they're still the best record. Boston's defense this year is not at the elite level that it was last year. And at times, I just watched that team. They don't look like they have that same momentum of figuring things out that they did at the end of last year. So they're kind of going down. And Philly, I told you this the other day. I think after this last month or two, Embiid's kind of past Jokic, for
Yes.
me at least, because I'm not joining this bandwagon. I think new evidence was added, so my opinions changed because that's how the MVP argument should work.
Yeah.
So that's why I have, I think the Sixers are ascending, Boston's descending, and I don't really like any other team in the East besides the Miami Heat who are playing bad. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs because they're going to be annoying.
Well, we can get to the Heat in a bit. I don't feel like talking about them just yet. But first of all, you've been on this podcast several times over the past year. It's great to finally hear you admit that Embiid has surpassed Jokic.
I'm not admitting it. I'm just saying with new evidence added.
That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. Joel MVP'd has been absolutely cooking in March. He's averaging 36 points per game in the month of March. Even in that defeat to the Bulls the other night, even though that was a very sloppy game, Embiid still got 37 points and 16 rebounds. So he was certainly not the reason the Sixers took the defeat in that game. To your point about the Bucks, it is really encouraging if you're a Bucks fan to see that, like you said, Middleton has struggled. He's been in and out of the lineup. He hasn't even been in himself most of the time when he has played. And they're still 51-20, one seed in the East. You said they have the best record. It really does feel like defensively, they really can have any look you really want. I mean, Drew is obviously the best defensive guard in the league. I think he's proven that once again this year. Giannis is Giannis. And then Brooke Lopez, as you mentioned, is for whatever reason, he has now gone from like, oh yeah, he's a pretty good defender. I guess people forgot because he was injured most of last year, but he's really ascended to new heights at, in his mid 30s here, which is really cool to see. And Joe Ingles has been on fire from three. You mentioned Crowder. At least he's a guy who's, been there. So come playoff time, he'll know
Basic 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, exactly. He fits into their scheme. I'm definitely frightened by the Bucks, but at the same time, we did come back and have a 48-point fourth quarter against them very recently to come back and win the game where, the Bucks are a great team. The Sixers are a great team, but for me, the Bucks, you can't say, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but to me, you can't say the Bucks are like a clear-cut favorite over the Sixers when in that game, the Bucks should have totally put the Sixers away. We were playing absolutely horrifically on defense. Grayson Allen put up, I think, 20 points in a quarter against us, or 17 points, whatever it was.
Oh, it was 20 or 25.
It was 20.
It was at least 20. It was at least 20.
It was 20. Okay, so 20 points in a quarter from freaking Grayson Allen. And then we still come back 48 points in the fourth. Everyone was playing great down the stretch of that game. So for me, that game proved, and there's some other games as well, even that game against Denver on that Sunday night when we just, Embiid just took it to Jokic. Denver's the 1 seed in the West, and the Sixers won the game. To me, the Sixers are right there, and I hesitate saying that because, I had JP and Justin on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the Sixers team. They're good, but they're once again just not going to be good enough to win the finals. I'm starting to change my tune on that. Chris, I know you just said you would pick the Bucks right now, but do you think the Sixers team might finally be a team that has a potential to make an NBA Finals run?
No, honestly.
Why?
You said that I think the Bucks are the clear-cut favorite against the Sixers. I know you said people are saying that, and you should. Here's my thing, right? If this is a regular season game, sure, it could go either way. I'd put everything on Milwaukee in the playoffs Do I really think James Harden is going to have? Like, I don't trust Harden. I don't think he's going to have a great series when the moment matters. Just from what I've seen from him, Embiid's good, but it's not like he's been this like. There's no playoff Embiid. You know what I mean?
Okay, but here's the thing. I think it's coming this year, and because the guy, he's never been healthier. Like seriously, he's what he has been doing for the past 3 months is the absolute peak of his powers. And I don't think it's fair to just say, well, he's had injuries in the playoffs before, it will just happen again. They were all such freak injuries. I mean, whether it's getting hit in the face by Markelle Fultz, the whole Justice Winslow incident.
Last year, Scotty hit him.
What did you say?
Last year, he had that face break thing.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, maybe it happens again, but that would just be the worst luck in the world. Embiid is like in a different realm right now. And I really think that with him playing like that, and that we can talk about more of the rest of the team, but that's my argument for why this Sixers team can absolutely at least compete with the Bucks. Maybe the Bucks beat us in a 7-game series, but continue your point. But I just wanted to say that.
I mean, I think last year for me kind of just proved playoff experience and also just rely like the teams that have done it before. I just am going to start sticking with because I thought nothing in Golden State and then they won it all because I thought, hey, they're having a terrible end of the season, whatever. And then come playoff time, the teams that have been there, the teams that have been together through the playoffs before, they always seem to figure it out. That's why Miami, like as much as we hate Miami, they're always a pain because they played together. They have all that. The Sixers, this is definitely their best chance. I think they're 10 times better than last season in terms of like an actual contender because last year, I think most people, it was like a 50-50 between them and Miami and even Toronto too. So this year though, they have the best chance. I think talent wise, they're not that far behind Milwaukee. I just know myself, I'm not going to pick any team to beat Milwaukee except for maybe the Celtics if they're right, but the Celtics aren't right. The Sixers haven't made the conference finals. Embiid hasn't been there. Harden hasn't been there since Houston, right? So I'm just not going to pick James Harden and Embiid I'm not going to give them a real shot until I actually see it from them in the playoffs. I'll wait until I see it. I'm not going to predict it to happen.
If the Bucks, first of all, like I'm being a little disingenuous because there's certainly red flags with this Sixers team, like whether it's who our coach is first and foremost, because in the playoffs
that's your biggest issue. I want to be honest.
Yeah, it is. I will say Doc has been mostly harmless over the past month, but maybe that's just the winning disguising it. But I truly don't think in the games that things go wrong for the Sixers, there's much he can do. Like when Tobias just goes 3 for 10 or whatever, like games like that, there's nothing Doc can do really. Tobias, he was playing so well in December and January. I really thought he was finding his role with the team. Right now, you have no clue what you're getting from him. And in a series against the Bucks with all those wing defenders they have, really not even just wing defenders in general, but Giannis and Crowder and Ingles and whoever, even Javon Carter, whoever.
You have Drew guarding a guard. You have Crowder and Ingles at the wings, then Giannis and Brook. And Brook's a 3-and-D player at 7.
Not to mention Middleton if he somehow figures it out.
If Middleton figures something out, I'm actually just going to just assume Milwaukee wins the whole thing. If Middleton's not back, then I'm like, sure, it's going to be a close thing. Like I think any team could put up a close fight because sometimes their offense is average. Milwaukee's offense. If Middleton figures things out, then I'm just going to put every egg in that basket of Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think the Sixers' wing presence is definitely a concern. Because Tucker's been a lot better, but at the end of the day, he still is just, slow-footed. He's getting up there in age, and he's not really willing to step up offensively. The Sixers need to figure out a way where they can maximize that Harden, Maxey, Melton look with Tobias and Embiid. Although, it's funny, I'm starting to wonder maybe it should be Tucker Embiid with Tobias, maybe finding his way on the bench. But I think it depends on the matchup. Because Tobias, the potential for him to go off and score is so important. But if he's not on his A game, then Tucker's rebounding is almost more important because him and Embiid are really the only rebounders on this team. So when you go up against the Bucks, that's pretty important when you look at the personnel the Bucks are running with, obviously led by Giannis. The Sixers can match up with the Bucks. We just have to be playing to our maximum abilities because if things go wrong for us, then the Bucks probably will smoke us. But if we're at the top of our game, like we've been over these past few weeks, I really think the Sixers team can beat them.
Yeah, two things. One, I cannot wait for PJ Tucker to hold Giannis to 52 points and then them to say how great
That's
of
not
a
what it's about. That's not what it's about.
oh yeah, he really made him work for that 52.
We had this conversation before. I'm not entertaining this.
I know, but I just for the fans, get ready for PJ Tucker playing great defense on Giannis as he has 40 a game. I think your bench unit scares me at times compared to Milwaukee's. You tell me Milwaukee's bench is so good. Who on the Milwaukee's bench is gonna stop Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, or Giannis if one of those guys are out there? Like you
You
need,
talking about this? The Sixers?
yeah, like you're gonna need Embiid out there at all times that Giannis is out there because God forbid Montrezl Harrell is the center out there and
Hey,
Giannis.
hey,
Is
credit to Doc Rivers. Paul Reed is the backup center. Is 100%. He is 100% locked in as the backup.
Okay, even if Paul Reed's there, I'm still gonna pick. I'm assuming Giannis is gonna cook him. So I feel like that's the one
Yeah,
concern for
that's
me
why
is
Paul Reed's only going to play 5 minutes.
I know, but I'm saying is you're gonna have to like Embiid's gonna be out there for so much time, so many minutes. Like Embiid doesn't usually have that many minutes per game, to be honest with you. So it's not like Embiid's used to getting out there 43 minutes a game. So I don't. That's my concern from a team standpoint. Is that I don't think you guys can do the Harden, Melton, Maxey lineup. I think that's just too small compared to Milwaukee. If Middleton's right, because I don't see. Well, Milton can guard Middleton, I guess, but
Yeah,
it's just smaller. So
I think like I'm
be
trying to
down.
think who the Bucks crunch time 5 and like a must win game 7 would be. It would be Drew, Giannis, Brook. Would they really throw Grayson Allen out there? I feel like Joe Ingles could sneak in if they just for some shooting.
Okay, so
And then
everyone
obviously, if Middleton's healthy, he's in there.
everyone likes to take shots like Grayson Allen, including myself. But I will say there's been numerous times this year where he hits a big three that's like gets in
I'm
the
aware he had 20 points in a quarter against the Sixers.
I know it did. I get to like in the fourth quarter, like I forget what game, I forget what they played, but Grayson Allen just like does stuff, and you're like, oh, he's actually good.
Yeah,
But no one likes Grayson Allen because of
he's not a scrub. I mean, he's a starter for this team.
I know, just no one likes him because of Duke. He was like a jerk and everything, which I'm totally on board with.
Yeah.
But he actually is a really good player in the starting 5. Like his role of just shooting is perfect, and he's a really good shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So probably him and Middleton out of respect for Middleton. I just think that I don't know who can compete with that lineup. I think the Sixers, Embiid this year, just Brook Lopez and Giannis. Like everyone talks about how it's a bad matchup for the Bucks because of like Giannis has trouble going against Embiid. Yeah, but like I don't think that also applies the other way where Embiid has to go against Brook and Giannis too. It's not like it's a one-way street there.
No, I agree. I think Brook definitely presents a challenge. It's like what Boston has always been able to do is, come with these double teams where the Bucks have a different version of that, where like Giannis is he's just an athlete out there, and Brook will be the man holding down the paint. Where if Embiid's going to the basket, he's gonna have to face Brook most likely. Giannis will stick his hands up in there too, but Giannis is more going to be the one chasing Embiid out to the perimeter and places like that if he's doing that. Where Boston kind of always just threw all their bigs at Embiid, just like swarmed them. I feel like that is a danger that the Bucks can kind of get creative with how they guard Embiid with Brook and Giannis both being out there. But I will say, like in the games we've played them this year, because we played them earlier in the season as well, like Embiid still is getting to his spots. And I'll also say Drew Holiday had a good game offensively against the Sixers last time we played them, but like Tyrese was getting to his spots in the second half, especially in that game as well. Harden had a good game. So like Drew, I'm not saying Drew's a bad defender by any means, of course, but even though he's playing at this elite level, he didn't really do much to stop our backcourt, who at this point I think is, top 5 in the league at the very least, the way they've been playing over these past few months. It's just it's going to be an interesting chess match. And I really hope this is the Eastern Finals because it will be a very interesting matchup. Obviously, the Sixers are going to have to get through Boston first, and we can talk about that in a moment because we've kind of been ducking Boston in this conversation. But just what would you think? What's your thoughts on that? Like just the look of Holiday going up against Maxey and Harden.
I mean, as you know, I love Drew Holiday just because I
do
think
too. Used to be on the Sixers.
In every big moment down the stretch of games, what he does defensively, like I feel bad for Devin Booker at times because he just got twice, once in the finals, once this year. Yeah. He just gets stripped by Drew, and it's not fair. He takes the ball and he runs away with it, and then Milwaukee wins. I think Drew's allowed to have a game defensively where he doesn't lock someone down. Harden had a great game, credit to him, but I would bank on Holiday at the end of big games making plays because that's what I've seen from him. I don't think this one random game in the regular season of Drew not locking down Harden's going to mean a lot to me when it comes to the playoffs.
But it's more than just a random game in the sense of like I also just buy what Harden and Maxey are doing. Like Harden has been so good this year. I know you don't want to hear it, but he's been
No, he's
stupendous.
great, but I just don't think that you can rely on Harden to do that multiple times in the series. You could have a game or two where he has more than 30. I don't see that. If Drew's actually also assigned to Harden to stay on him, I don't know how they're going to use Drew yet necessarily. I'm assuming Harden, but if Harden's passing, might put Drew on someone else who's scoring more that game. Really depends. I just think that game, I do this too, where I'll see a game and I'll think that's how it's going to work. And then come playoffs time, that just doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I think Drew is by far the best guard defender in the league, and then everyone else is a tier or two below him. I just think that matchup is I think Milwaukee is just the most complete team.
Mhm. I think I think they're the deepest, and that's not even. We haven't really talked about Bobby Portis. I mean, he's another guy who, if Brook or Giannis gets in foul trouble. I mean, mainly Brook. I don't think Giannis would come out really at all, but Bobby can just step in there, give them a little more offense. Like, the Sixers bench still worries me a bit, but I think we can, as long as Doc cuts the rotation down to 8, I think we're going to be able to hang with Milwaukee's depth. The problem is, A, Doc has been hesitant to cut the rotation depth down in the playoffs in the past. And B, like, to your point, at the end of the day, like, Drew is just like that. He just is he's such a lockdown guy. Giannis is such a problem. He is arguably still the best player in the world. I'm saying arguably. We'll have to see what happens.
I don't think it's arguable, but
We'll have to see what happens in the playoffs this year.
that's
But
a good point.
my argument, this is the last thing we'll say, and we can move on. For me, my vision for the Sixers Bucks, if the Sixers are going to win that series, it is because we outscore them. Because with Embiid, NBA's leader in points per game, playing the best he's ever played, coupled with Harden, who is, found a way to one game have 30, the next game have 14 assists and 14 points. He's balancing the offense so well this year. You throw in Maxey, who's been awesome since he finally got back in the starting lineup. And then the rest of the guys are inconsistent, but at least one of them always seems to have a good game, whether it's Tobias, whether it's Melton, sometimes George Niang randomly pops off. So I do think the Sixers, there's a roadmap where we just outscore the Bucks and we overcome that defense. I'm not saying it's likely. Like, I wouldn't bet on Doc Rivers to take that team down in a 7-game series, but I have optimism like I haven't had for this team in years. And I know, 2 years ago, that team with Simmons and Seth Curry, then we were the 1 seed, I said I had the optimism and like I felt it, but looking back, it's embarrassing that I thought that team was good enough to win a championship because it just wasn't. This team, I could look back in 10 years, we don't win the championship, but I could still look back and say my optimism was well placed because that was a really good team. This is the most confident I've felt since the Jimmy Butler team.
Your point about just this year, I get what you're saying. You wouldn't pick the Sixers necessarily, but I just think I just don't understand. I agree that the 76ers will have to outscore the Bucks. That's a good point. They will have to score more points. But no, but I get what you mean. Like, actually, like, their offense has to just pop off. And
Yes.
I get what you're saying. I think for Milwaukee, that's their biggest concern is sometimes you look at it, and if Giannis starts having to force shots, where if Giannis is being selective and Giannis is just getting the shots that he wants and it's a layup every time, it's perfect. But I told you this, what was it, 3 months ago, or that sometimes seems like Giannis was forcing things without Middleton and the team looked like it was stalling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If that Milwaukee comes out, I completely agree that then the series could change. I just think they figured something out. I think they learned how to play without Middleton being the second guy. If they could keep that system, I think they're the best team. But I do think the Sixers have a chance. It just is going to have to take like an all-time Embiid series and Harden not choking and Milwaukee not having a good series.